All right, good morning, class. Welcome back to geography. Today, said we would kick off the day talking about Maine. So let's see if there's something you'll learn today. Maine was once claimed by Massachusetts, like about half of New England was once upon a time. We only became a state much later, and we became the 23rd state. The Cadillac Mountain Range is the highest mountain range in this region of America along the Atlantic coast. However, it's really not that high compared to other major mountain ranges like the Rockies or the Alps. Maine is, of course, famous for our lobsters, and I hope you realize they do not come out of the ocean bright, shiny red, but man, those look good. Maybe you didn't know Maine is a leading toothpick producer. We produce about 100 million toothpicks a day. And about 100 years ago, we were producing about 90% of the world's toothpicks, which is quite impressive. That's because Maine has a lot of pine trees, and pine trees are not the best lumber. They're more of a trash tree. They're mass-produced lumber, so you use them for 2x4s that are hidden behind the walls. You can't make furniture or anything out of pine. It's much too soft and will dent and scratch and get really yucky. But they're perfect for toothpicks, disposable wood. Very interesting. Here's a very old toothpick factory. Maine is the only state with just one syllable in its name. Yay! And Maine is also the only state that only borders one other state, or I should say exactly one other state. Alaska and Hawaii don't border anyone. Maine borders one. Every other state borders multiple states. Moving along to our next section, the Atlantic states. This area was the most diverse in colonial times. In both New England and the southern colonies, we had a vast majority of English people coming over. And then a little bit south of our southern colonies in Florida, of course, we had just Spaniards there for the longest time. But there's lots of different people coming to the middle Atlantic states. We're talking Swedes, Finns, Dutch, Germans, Irish, Italians, Jews, all people from all over are coming. And they contributed quite a bit to what we call classic American culture. Log cabins were brought in by the Swedes. Cookies were brought by the Dutch. Cookie is a Dutch word. So I'm very thankful for both those inventions being brought to America. And of course, the Finns bringing over their mountaineering and lumberjacking, and a lot of them go out to the Midwest after a little while. The Germans bringing their sausages, Frankfurters, and their hamburgers. That's a big part of American culture today. The Irish bringing their potatoes, the Italians bringing their cuisine. Uh, all these cultures play a big part in American culture today. New York is the first state in this region. It is the northernmost of the Middle Atlantic states, and it's by far the most populated. New York City is in fact a brand new thing in world history. It's called a megalopolis. So polis means city, metropolis means big city, and megalopolis means even bigger than that when you have multiple metropolises that are close enough that they count as almost a single city. The suburbs of New York City are in 4 different states, which is quite impressive. And from Boston all the way down to DC could be considered a single city because the population density in between, that several hundred-mile stretch, is always high enough to be classified as city, not as countryside. There is no countryside between these cities. Which is quite impressive that we have the food and technology and resources to supply this major megalopolis. That's quite impressive. So up here we have Boston, then Hartford, Connecticut, New York, Newark, New Jersey, Annapolis, Maryland, Washington, D.C., all right in a row. And then, of course, New York City is famous for the Statue of Liberty, brought over to America in 1885 in hundreds of crates and then reassembled in America in New York Harbor. It's famous for its poem, The New Colossus by Emma Rhodes. So just a little bit of background, the old Colossus, the Colossus of Rhodes, was one of the 7 ancient wonders of the world, and it was in ancient Greece. Let's read this. Not like the brazen giant of Greek fame, with conquering limbs astride from land to land, here at our sea-washed sunset gates shall stand a mighty woman with a torch, whose flame is the imprisoned lightning, and her name mother of exiles. From her beacon hand glows worldwide welcome. Her mild eyes command the air-bridged harbor that twin cities frame. Keep, ancient lands, your storied pomp, cries she with silent lips. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. So Emma Lazarus is making a big difference between our statue and the old statue in Greece. The old statue was a soldier, uh, and he's a conqueror, that second line says. But ours is a woman, not a conqueror, but still mighty. A mighty woman with a torch. And what is that torch? The imprisoned lightning. What do you think imprisoned lightning is referring to? That's right. It's electricity. America is the foremost leader of electricity at the time. We're inventing all sorts of electric gadgets. Thomas Edison, Nikola Tesla, they are American. And America was well known for that in the 1880s. So her flame is the imprisoned lightning. Her name is the mother of exiles. People who are fleeing all over Europe and all across the world are fleeing their own terrible nations, and the Statue of Liberty welcomes them home to us. From her beacon hand, beacon saying, everyone come here, look at my light. I'm shining the way across the water for you to come to me. From her beacon hand glows worldwide welcome. We appreciate immigrants from all over the world. She doesn't have conquering eyes, she has mild eyes. Keep, ancient lands, your storied pomp, cries she. Pomp. Maybe you recall the phrase pomp and circumstance. It means being super fancy and kind of stuck up and full of yourself sometimes. Just think of graduation. Da, 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 da. You know, that super fanciness. This pomp that the Statue of Liberty says we don't want. It's talking about all the noblemen and politicians of Europe who are so awful to their own people. They're persecuting their own people and not allowing any kind of liberty. And she says, we don't want you. We do not want the stuck up, powerful, full of themselves people who won't give liberty. We want the people you're persecuting. Give me your tired. Give me your poor. Give me your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. The wretched refuse, which means garbage. Give me what you consider garbage. We'll turn them into profitable American citizens. Give me the homeless. There are many, many rags to riches stories of immigrants coming to America, and they had no opportunity in their old homeland. But in America, we are the land of opportunity. Andrew Carnegie is a great example. Started off as a Scottish immigrant, making next to nothing, like $1 a day, and he ends up being one of the richest people in the entire world. Because America is capitalist, we are a land of opportunity. We don't care if you start off poor, you can work hard and you can get a better life for yourself. Now, I don't think everyone will be able to go from rags to extreme riches like Carnegie, but everyone can better themselves. You work hard, you will make your life better in America. We do have opportunities available. Just some fun facts about the Statue of Liberty. It was created by Gustave Eiffel. Maybe you've heard of the Eiffel Tower, maybe not. He used his mother as the face model to give a nice motherly look, and he used his wife as the body model. Just kind of weird. There you go. The whole thing was bright coppery brown until the sea spray, salt and water, and sunlight corroded it into a beautiful green. It's called a verdigris or a patina. That's pretty cool, the aged copper look. It was given to America as the symbol of friendship between America and France. France gave us liberty in the Revolutionary War, and now they're giving us the Statue of Liberty about 100 years later in 1885. All right, New York is also famous for its Finger Lakes in upstate New York. You can see that region. Upstate New York is very rural. The Finger Lakes were carved out by glaciers coming down south. So when people talk about climate change happens. It happens all the time, for better or for worse. Once upon a time, there were glaciers far south of where we are right now, and the world has warmed quite a bit since then, and I appreciate that. Once upon a time, the upstate Siberia, or northern Siberia, I should say, had tropical flowers in it. So once upon a time, the Earth was much warmer than it is today, unless there was just some really weird freak accident that happened in northern Siberia. I don't know. But the world has not always had the exact same climate as it has today. And that lets me think that probably the world will not always have the same climate as it does today. And that might be good for some people, and that might be bad for other people. Global warming might be nice for people living in the frozen north, and might not be so nice for people already living among the equator. But I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens. The upstate New York area is covered by what's called the Allegheny Plateau. I'm sure you've heard the Allegheny Mountains before, and there's this flat area in between them. And of course, the Great Lakes on the western border. And there you have Buffalo, New York, and Niagara Falls. It's pretty cool. Niagara Falls, not even in the top 10 highest waterfalls in the world, but by volume, it's just insane how much water goes across, making it a really cool tourist place. If you've never been, go ahead and go. It's free to walk up along that pathway, although there's a lot of tourist trap things you can do and spend a lot of money there if you really want to. Moving on to Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania has a lot of U.S. history in it. Philadelphia was our capital once. In fact, at the time of the Revolution, Philadelphia was the second largest English-speaking city in the world. It was second only to London. There was no other city in the English Empire besides London that was as big as Philly. So, of course, it was our natural choice for capital. Although after a while, the Southerners decided they thought, Philly was far too north, so they wanted a more southern capital, and so we moved it. Gettysburg is in Pennsylvania as well. That's pretty cool. That is one of the northernmost battles of the Civil War, and of course, by far the most deadly battles of the Civil War. Gettysburg is where the Gettysburg Address was given, and today it is a beautiful park, and you can go learn a lot about the Civil War there. Hershey, Pennsylvania is pretty cool. Go to this whole theme park that's Hershey themed. Delicious. And Pennsylvania is famous for its coal mining. It has been for a very long time. Pennsylvania has some very high quality coal. If you didn't realize or didn't know, there are 3 different major types of coal, and they range from brown, like lightish brown, to really, really dark black. And the brownish coal has a lot of impurities in it, has a lot of sulfur, which is bad for humans to breathe in sulfur smoke. It does turn into nasty acids in the air when it connects with oxygen and water. If you've ever heard of sulfuric acid, burning this bad quality coal will result in a lot of sulfuric acid in your lungs and in the sky, and then it rains down. It's really not good. However, Pennsylvania does not have that bad coal. It has really, really high quality things called bituminous coal, which is dark black and dense and has a lot of energy per unit. I love this poem. It talks about the differences between bituminous and anthracite coal. Daddy fixed the breakfast. He made us each a waffle. It looked like gravel pudding. It tasted something awful. Ha ha, he said. I'll try again. This time I'll get it right. But what I got was in between bituminous and anthracite. 2 different types of coal. A little too well done? Oh well, I'll have to start all over. That time what landed on my plate looked like a manhole cover. I tried to cut it with a fork. The fork gave off a spark. I tried a knife and twisted it into a question mark. I tried it with a hacksaw. I tried it with a torch. It didn't even make a dent. It didn't even scorch. The next time Dad gets breakfast when Mummy's sleeping late, I think I'll skip the waffles. I'd rather eat the plate. I believe that is a Shel Silverstein poem. That's great. All right, New Jersey. What do you know about New Jersey besides mafia? Most New Jerseyans live in the north there, right around New York City. Newark, New Jersey is pretty close to New York City. If you go further south and west, you get the Pine Barrens, these places with not great soil, too acidic because of all the pines there, but also really beautiful. So you have a lot of um, resorts and things. They grow a lot of vegetables. That is why they're called the Garden State. And their word for vegetable is truck. I don't know why they got that name or how they got that name, but truck means garden vegetables. And a huge percentage of America's garden vegetables are grown in New Jersey. Just has the right soil and growing season for that kind of thing. I will say when I was a produce stalker at Shaw's in my college days, about 3/4 of our produce came from Mexico, but by far the second biggest producer of produce was New Jersey. The biggest state represented on those boxes was New Jersey. So there's a picture of our truck and farmers market. Also, 1/10 of America's toxic waste sites are in New Jersey. I don't know that that's a great combination, growing food and toxic waste dumps. 114. Did you know that we have over 1,000 toxic waste dumps in America? That's not great. And 1/10 of them are in this highly populated state with an awful lot of vegetables growing in it. Ew. Hope they do frequent soil tests to make sure their farms are good. Maryland is next. But before we get to Maryland, here is a giant peninsula called Delmarva Peninsula because it has Delaware, Maryland, and Virginia in it. A lot of people want to make Delmarva its own state, so put in Delaware and all these other sections together. DC was taken from parts of Virginia and parts of Maryland so that it would not have any state preferred over any other state. The Chesapeake Bay is right here in between Maryland and the northern part of Virginia. Okay. Um, The Chesapeake Bay is very interesting because it is not very deep at all. There's some places where it's only 6 feet deep, hundreds of feet out from shore, and it's only 6 feet deep, and it has a lot of sand in it. So there's like sandbars that constantly move, and they update their maps constantly of the bottom of the ocean floor. They put out a new one every couple months, 6 months, I think, so that the bigger boats don't get stuck. They have this really cool bridge tunnel that goes from one side of Chesapeake Bay to the other, called the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel. It's over 17 miles long. Because the water is 95 feet deep in some places and just 4 feet deep in other places, because some of the dirt is hard clay and some of it is sand that's constantly shifting, it was a very intense building process. There's a picture of where the bridge turns into a tunnel. Pretty cool. It curved so much. I did a little reading on this. It curved so much because it had to follow the good soil, find a good firm footing for that. Delaware is the second smallest state, but it is like number 6 or 7 in population from the lowest of the list. Sorry, it has a couple million people in it, so it's much bigger than several other states. I mean, Wyoming and Vermont don't even have 1 million people in it, so there you go. DuPont and Dow Chemical Company are based in Delaware and have been for a long time. And DuPont is responsible for many modern American materials. Styrofoam. Styrofoam's everywhere, invented by DuPont. AstroTurf, that fake grass made for stadiums and things, invented and made by DuPont. Nylon, interesting story here. In World War II, silk was highly valued and very scarce. It was used for parachutes. All our paratroopers needed silk parachutes, and silk comes from around the world, from China and that area of the world. And of course, with submarines and enemy warships, getting stuff across the ocean was very difficult. So there was a massive silk shortage, and so DuPont invented a silk substitute. Nylon is actually a plastic, and you make it similar to cotton candy. You melt it and then you extrude it out of these itty bitty little holes that are whizzing around and flinging out this little thread, and then you can work with that thread and make a fabric. So nylon, very strong, very stretchy fabric, modern fabric. It is a wonder. Acrylic, the first acrylics were invented by DuPont. Uh, Lucite, maybe you've heard of that brand name. Lucite was a very common acrylic, very hard, tough plastic. Teflon, that non-stick coating for frying pans, invented by DuPont. And it's not just used for frying pans, it's also used in a number of machines, big old industrial settings. If these parts have non-stick coating on them, they don't need as much lubrication, they don't wear out as fast, so very, very useful. You could also put Teflon on bullets and make it more armor piercing. It's interesting. Lycra is another one of those kind of spandexy fabrics that's very strong and tough and very, very stretchy. You can wear that to slim yourself, suck it all in. Kevlar, bulletproof fabric invented by DuPont. Incredibly strong and tough, much stronger than steel at a fraction of steel's weight. One of the guys who was testing out Kevlar wanted to show everyone how wonderful it was. So he made pants out of Kevlar and he tied himself to a truck and had the truck drag him on the seat of his pants on a gravel road for quite some distance. And then he got up and said, "Hey, everybody, I'm fine. The pants haven't worn out. They're that tough." Of course, he got a lot of orders for that. Again, Kevlar is not just used for bulletproof vests. It's used in a variety of machinery and industrial capacities wherever you need something that's very strong and very durable. And they don't just make fabric out of it. You can make like hoses, like fire hoses out of it. You can make straps, very strong, tie down straps out of Kevlar. It is a really wonderful product. And DuPont, the DuPont family is one of America's richest families. It is a very large family now, so I don't know if any of them are in the top 10 richest people in the world, but the family is incredibly wealthy. And it's a great story of capitalism and immigration working. It's actually in the Becca economics book, as an example. Really great story. So this French guy by the name of DuPont was visiting America before the American Revolution. And he went on a hunting trip with people, and the gunpowder that they were using was really terrible. Sometimes the gunpowder wouldn't go off. Sometimes it would, go off with a puff and not really a bang, and the gunpowder just really wasn't working. And he talked to his hunting buddies about it, and they said, "Yeah, we have these gunpowder factories, and they just do a terrible job. It's totally unreliable." So he's like, there's an opportunity. He knew nothing about how to make gunpowder, but he sees the need for high quality gunpowder. So I think it's after the revolution. He comes to America just after the revolution, after having researched all about how to make gunpowder and hiring a bunch of experts. He comes to America and starts a gunpowder factory to make really high quality gunpowder. And his business is booming because everyone realizes that they need high quality gunpowder. And eventually, Thomas Jefferson, America's first Secretary of State, puts in an order for like thousands and thousands of barrels of gunpowder from him. And at that point, his company is made in the shade. He is the supplier of gunpowder to the U.S. military. And from there, he just took off, making a whole lot of other things. And it's just that shows you a wonderful example of capitalism. When there is a need, someone says, "I'm going to fill that need." And if you fill the need, you are helping everyone around you and making yourself a fortune at the very same time. Good job, DuPont. Delaware was the very first state to sign the Constitution and ratify it, and they were the very first state to officially fly the American flag. Pretty cool.